You are not broke in America. You are just stuck in a loop that was designed long before you ever got your first paycheck. And the scariest part is, you're doing everything right. You wake up in your apartment in New York City. Your alarm goes off at 6:30 a.m. You check your phone, emails, notifications, maybe your bank app for a second. Your balance looks okay. Not great. Not terrible. Just enough to get through the week. You get dressed, grab a quick coffee, and head out into the city. Glass buildings. Expensive cars. People in suits walking fast like they know exactly where they're going. It feels like success is everywhere around you. But inside, you feel something else. A quiet pressure you can't explain. Because no matter how much you earn, it never feels like enough. You are Michael Smith. You're 32. You have a good job in Manhattan. You make around $85,000 a year. 10 years ago, that sounded like freedom. Now, it feels like survival. Your rent alone is $2,400 a month, a small one-bedroom apartment that barely fits your life. Groceries cost more than they did last year. Gas is unpredictable. Eating out feels like a luxury you have to justify. And every month, your paycheck disappears faster than you expect. You tell yourself it's normal, because everyone around you is living the same way. Your coworker, Sarah Johnson, she makes about the same as you, maybe even a little more. But last week, she told you something quietly, like it was a secret she wasn't supposed to say out loud. I only have like $600 in my account right now, until next payday. You laughed it off, but it stayed in your head, because you checked your own account later that night, and it wasn't much different. This is what life looks like now. Not poor, but never comfortable. Not struggling enough to panic, but never stable enough to relax. And slowly, you start to realize something doesn't add up. Because you followed the rules, you went to school, you got a degree. Actually, you took out student loans to make that happen. About $38,000. At the time, it felt like an investment in your future. Now, it feels like a monthly reminder that your future was already sold. Every month, a portion of your paycheck disappears into that loan. You don't even think about it anymore. It's just there, like a subscription you can't cancel. Then there's your credit cards. It didn't start as a problem. It never does. At first, it was just convenience. A dinner here, a new phone there, maybe a flight home during the holidays. You told yourself, I'll pay it off next month. But next month came, and something else showed up. An unexpected expense. A higher bill. A slightly smaller paycheck after taxes. So you paid the minimum instead. It felt harmless. Until it became a habit. Now, you carry a balance. Not huge, but not small either. Around $6,000 spread across 2 cards. And every month, interest quietly grows in the background. You don't see it happening, but it's always there. The system doesn't need to rush you. It just needs you to stay inside it. And the deeper you go, the harder it becomes to step out. One day, you decide to check your credit score. It's a number you've been told matters your entire life. It decides where you can live, what car you can drive, even how much you pay for insurance. You open the app 720. Good. That's what it says. But it doesn't feel like good, because even with a good credit score, you're still living paycheck to paycheck. So what is this number actually doing for you? That's when something subtle starts to shift in your mind. Because you begin to understand. Your credit score isn't a measure of how free you are. It's a measure of how well you play the game. How reliably you stay in debt and pay it back. With interest. You're not being rewarded for escaping the system. You're being rewarded for staying inside it. And suddenly, that changes everything. Because now you're not just working for your paycheck. Your paycheck is already divided before it even hits your account. Rent takes its share. Loans take theirs. Credit cards take a piece. And whatever is left, you use to survive until the next cycle begins again. Week after week. Month after month. It's not chaos. It's structure. A system that looks normal from the outside, but feels impossible to escape from the inside. And the strangest part is, no one ever told you this directly. You just ended up here, living a life that looks stable, but feels like it's always one step away from falling apart. And deep down, you start asking a question most Americans try to avoid. If I'm doing everything right, why does it still feel like I'm losing? That question doesn't leave your mind. It follows you the next morning, into the subway, into your office, into every quiet moment where you're not distracted. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Later that week, something small happens, but it's enough to push everything forward. Your car breaks down. Nothing major, just a repair. $1,200. You stare at the number on your phone for a few seconds. You could pay it in cash, but that would almost wipe out what you have left for the month. And that feels risky. So instead, you reach for your credit card. It's automatic. No hesitation. You've been trained for this. Use credit now, figure it out later. The payment goes through instantly. Problem solved. At least, that's what it feels like. But what actually happened is something much quieter. You just moved your stress into the future. Now, instead of one $1,200 problem, you have a growing balance, collecting interest every single day. And the system is patient. It doesn't need to pressure you. It just waits. A few days later, you're sitting at lunch with Sarah Johnson again. She looks tired. More than usual, you ask her what's wrong. She hesitates for a second, then finally says it. I think I'm stuck. You don't respond right away, because you know exactly what she means. She tells you she's been trying to save money for the past year, cutting expenses, skipping trips, avoiding unnecessary spending. But every time she gets close to building something pulls her back down. A medical bill, higher rent, groceries going up again. Inflation isn't something she reads about anymore. It's something she feels every single day. And the worst part is, her salary hasn't changed enough to keep up. So technically, she's earning more than she did 2 years ago. But in reality, she's falling behind. You sit there in silence for a moment. Because your situation isn't much different. This is what middle-class life in America looks like now. Not broke enough to qualify for help, but not stable enough to build real wealth. You're just maintaining, barely. And the system around you keeps moving forward, whether you can keep up or not. That's when you start noticing something else. Your bank sends you an email, pre-approved for a personal loan. Another one follows a few hours later. Increase your credit limit instantly. At first, it feels helpful, like support, like options. But if you look closer, it's something else entirely. Every offer is a way to keep you inside the cycle. More access to money you don't actually have. More ways to borrow, more ways to owe. Because the system doesn't make money when you're free. It makes money when you're dependent. And dependence doesn't feel like a trap at first. It feels like convenience. You start thinking, maybe I should take the higher limit, just in case. Maybe a small loan would help me breathe a little. But every decision like that adds another layer, another monthly obligation, another piece of your future already claimed. And slowly, your financial life becomes something you don't fully control anymore. It controls you. You begin to plan your entire life around payments. Not dreams, not goals. Just payments. When is rent due? When is the credit card bill hitting? How much is left after student loans? Your calendar isn't time anymore. It's deadlines. And if you miss one, the consequences are immediate. Late fees, penalty interest, a drop in your credit score. That number again. Always watching. Always deciding what you're allowed to do next. And the pressure builds quietly. Not in one big moment, but in small, constant waves. You start to feel it in your chest. That low-level anxiety that never fully goes away. Even on weekends. Even when you're supposed to relax. Because deep down, you know the truth. You're not one emergency away from being rich. You're one emergency away from falling behind. And once you fall behind in this system, catching up is even harder than staying afloat. That's when the realization starts becoming clearer. This isn't just about money. It's about control. Your job controls your income. Your bank controls your access. Your debt controls your choices. And your time is traded every single day just to keep all of it running. You begin to see why so many Americans stay in this cycle for decades. Not because they're lazy, not because they're bad with money, but because the system is built in a way where escaping requires more than just effort. It requires awareness. And awareness is the one thing nobody teaches you. Because the moment you fully understand the game, you stop playing it the same way. And that's not something the system benefits from. So instead, it keeps you busy. Working, paying, repeating. And just when you think you might be getting ahead, something shifts again. Rent increases. Interest rates go up. Costs rise quietly in the background. And you're pushed right back to where you started. Not at the bottom, but never at the top either. Just in the middle. Stuck in a loop that feels normal. Until you really look at it. And once you do, you realize something that's hard to ignore. This isn't just your life. This is millions of Americans living the exact same pattern. Different cities, different salaries, same outcome. And the system keeps running perfectly because everyone inside it is too busy surviving to question it. That's when it hits you. This was never about how much you earn. It was about how long you stay. You sit in your apartment one night. No TV, no music, just silence. And for the first time, you actually look at your numbers, not quickly, not casually. You go line by line. Your income, your rent, your subscriptions, your student loan, your credit cards, everything. And what you see isn't random. It's a pattern. Every dollar that comes in already has somewhere to go before you even touch it. It's like your money isn't yours. You're just directing it to the places that are waiting for it. And the system is designed to make sure those places are always there, always growing. You think back to when you got your first credit card. How easy it was. How normal it felt. No one explained the long game. No one told you that minimum payments are not relief, they're a delay. A way to stretch your obligation across time, while interest quietly multiplies in the background. You remember when your rent first increased. Just a few $100s. It didn't seem like a big deal at the time, until it happened again and again. Now, moving to a cheaper place feels impossible, because everything else has gone up too. So you stay, and staying is what the system depends on. The longer you stay in the same cycle, the more predictable you become. And predictability is profitable. Banks can calculate you. They know how much you'll likely borrow, how long you'll carry a balance, how much interest you'll pay over time. You're not a mystery, you're data. And the more consistent your behavior, the more valuable you are to the system. That good credit score you worked for, it tells lenders one thing: you're reliable. Not just at paying back money, but at staying in debt long enough to make the money. And suddenly, that number doesn't feel like an achievement anymore. It feels like a rating of how well you've adapted to the system. You look around your apartment. The furniture, the TV, the small things you bought over time. None of them feel extreme. Nothing feels irresponsible. And that's the point. You didn't fail. You followed the exact path that was laid out for you. School, debt, job, credit, lifestyle. Step by step, everything looked normal. Because it is normal. For millions of Americans. That's why it's so hard to question. Because if everyone around you is doing the same thing, it doesn't feel like a trap. It feels like life. But life shouldn't feel like this constant pressure. This constant calculation. This constant feeling that one mistake could push everything off balance. You check your bank app again. Not because you need to, but because you've trained yourself to. It's become a habit, a quiet form of control. You watch your balance like it's something fragile. Something that could disappear at any moment. And in a way it can. Because you don't control all the variables. The system does. Interest rates change. Costs rise. Opportunities shift. And you adjust. Over and over again. Without ever stepping outside of it. That's when the final realization settles in. Most Americans are not living paycheck to paycheck because they're irresponsible. They're living paycheck to paycheck because the system is designed to keep them close to the edge. Not falling, but never free. Because a person who is completely free doesn't rely on credit, doesn't depend on loans, doesn't generate long-term interest, and that person is not as profitable. So the system doesn't push you to fail. It keeps you functional. Just enough income to survive. Just enough access to credit to keep going. Just enough pressure to stay in motion. And once you see that, everything changes. Not instantly, not dramatically, but quietly. Because now, every financial decision feels different. Every swipe of your card, every monthly payment, every offer from your bank. You see it for what it is, not help, not convenience, but a choice. A choice to stay inside the loop or start questioning it. And that's the part no one talks about. There is no moment where the system lets you out. No finish line where everything becomes easy. There's only awareness. And what you do with it. Because the truth is, you were never just earning money. You were feeding a system that was built to keep you exactly where you are. Stable, but never secure. Working, but never finished. Alive inside a life that looks successful from the outside, but quietly runs on pressure from within. And now you know. Not everyone escapes it. Most don't even see it. But once you do, you can't go back to believing this is just how life is supposed to be.